Welcome to Say It Sister, the space where two midlife women speak truth, feel deeply, and change the world together. We are Karen Harris-Kelly and Lucy Barkus. We're friends, we're coaches, and we're women who have had enough of staying silent about topics that really matter to us, and we want to share our conversations with you out loud.
Hey, it's great to see you, Karen. And today we're bringing our raw energy into our conversation and out to play. We're talking about female anger, that inner rage that bubbles up and you just can't push it down anymore. It can be scalding, uncontainable, and it's like this fire that's beyond anger. If frustration is cold, buried version of anger, and resentment is the bitterness, then rage is the version that refuses to stay quiet.
Well, personally, I've been doing anger work since my late 20s, and I remember how hard I found it back then, how I was like having to go really, really deep, and it felt just weird. But when I got into the anger, there was so much of it, which always really shocked me. But lately, it feels different. And I said to my husband the other day, I feel like I could smash the whole house up. I'm so angry. And saying it really helped me to sort of name what I was feeling. You know, it did shift something for me, but I'm also aware that there is still the rage that sits in beneath my system. Um, and instead of pushing it down, I want to release it. But I'm also a little bit wary of the neighbours if I start shouting. So I'm kind of trying to hold all of these things. And, you know, when we do our work with Wise Women Lead, we are seeing that this is common for women and we're seeing where they're at. And to be honest, we're all feeling the same. You know, we have all these needs that are rising to the top like volcanoes that are about to explode. And there's so much pressure, so much suppression, and the lava is right there under the surface.
So I met a friend who I hadn't seen, to properly converse with for at least a year. And she's brilliant. She's, the academic type, works in a very high lecturer kind of role. She's got two brilliant teens who are probably, I'd say mid teens and then going off onto their next journey of education. And they're excelling, they're brilliant. And then she'd written me a message just saying something about co-parenting. So when I saw her, I said, co-parenting, does that mean you're not with your husband anymore? And she said, yeah, about 13, 14 months ago, she quit that marriage. And she was saying, that she's still really good friends with him. She's got a lot of love for him, a lot of respect. But actually, for years, there'd been this simmering resentment. She was a career woman. He had his career. They both had the responsibility of the home and raising the kids. But she said, he just wouldn't cook, wouldn't do the laundry, wouldn't tidy up after himself, couldn't think for himself. He would like almost purposely do a bad job of loading the dishwasher, yet he was quite capable of running an organization. So it was like this, on purpose being useless, just so she'd be like, well, I'll just do it. And I think she admitted herself that she had been carrying and rescuing and fixing and filling in the gaps for too long until she just couldn't do it anymore. And literally, she's saying, I literally just needed 50-50 household labour, childcare labour, a bit of that emotional labour. Um, and so none of this was instant. And that's what she said since talking to other women who are leaving their lives as such. She said, it's never instant. It's never actually the volcano. That simmering anger and rage and resentment bubbles a long time before you quit. And her ex-husband was completely surprised, didn't see it coming at all. And so, I just wanted to share that it shows up in so many ways, but there's a reason why in menopause there's also a term that's come out called men divorce, because that seems to be the outlet that comes. But it is from this simmering rage and let's be honest, we're all now pretty clear that the systems we exist in weren't built for us. And we've spoken about this many, many times, that we were told that we could have it all. And we were shoved into these molds and told to be grateful. We know that we've experienced it ourselves, but actually we can't hold all these multiple roles and carry in these invisible jobs. So yeah, while in the workplace, within the home, it just gets harder and harder. And I know that's been your experience at times as well, where eventually you just say enough.
The breaking point, which is something that I've become very obsessed with lately. You know, it's amazing because the dishwasher seems to be the cause of many, many divorces or many breakups because it's like that dishwasher, the way that that is not being handled is the final breaking point that creates the end of the relationship, whether it's a marriage or not. You know, and we really know that they're not really arguing about the dishwasher.
Yeah,
You know, there's, like you said, there's many more things. I think for me, female rage is so deep in the body. It's been pushed down for so many years. And we can feel it simmering, but we're very good still, even though we're in perimenopause and we're raging. We're still really good at going, we can name it now and say, I'm so angry or I'm raging, you know, and maybe we'll shout in our car or whatever at somebody driving past us or whatever we're doing. But then we go,
yeah,
and we push it down again. And what we don't do is release it out fully. Um, it's interesting because when I do the work with women, I'll say to them, like, I feel like anger's in the space or in the body or in the room with us. I feel like it's there because it has an impact on me. But rather than, I don't, or sometimes I'll say, feels like anger. Sometimes I don't because I want them to know what it is. And so I'll say, well, what is that feeling and where is it? And they go in and I'll say, is it hot, cold, or tepid? Now, the temperature tells me everything that I need to know. That's when we can go into sort of naming and labeling, but fundamentally they need to feel that. And I think,
yeah,
you know, that sort of like cold, insipid feeling of resentment, you know, it sort of lies quite deep down in the core of the body. You know, when people say it's cold, I'm like, oh God, it's been there ages, then it's really old. You know, and it's like a journey, isn't it? And what I've also learned is that emotions are families and they sit together in spaces, and certain ones sort of like sit together, but then you've got other emotions that are adjoining. So for example, you know, you've got despair as the very bottom chord on the piano, that's like the doo, you know, the really deep bassy, you can't get any lower than that, and that's like flatline bottom, can't get up, depressed. And then by the time we get up to anger, we're halfway through the journey, and then at the very top you've got love and joy. So actually we're completely in this place of like moving through scales and chords like we're playing a piano. We always talk about the piano, and whilst we want to be up at this frequency at the top, we've also got to realize that sometimes we're at the bottom. And then anger is that one that gets us moving, gives us life force energy, you know, like says we're just not doing that anymore. And as we get into our 40s and 50s, our relationship changes, and I just don't think we can push it down for sure, because I still do that. But it's like it won't go down like deep enough. You know, like before you could get it right
yeah,
down. Now it's like kind of sitting more like, you know, like more like around here. And then it's sort of rising up again, and it takes those little like breaking points, like the dishwasher, that, you know, off it comes. And you know, our masks are slipping. Um, we feel like, you know, like we're going on, or we're getting like angry at no, you know, sometimes it's like, why am I so angry at that? Why am I so angry at the dishwasher? Um, because there's so much more,
yeah,
you know, and it's just about going, oh, I'm curious about that now. Like, you know, curious feels a little bit cold still to me, actually. It's like, I know I have to go do that work, and understanding that we've got the hormonal shifts, we've also got a spiritual shift, and we're also redefining who we are now. You know, and then the decades of swallowing, stuffing things down, that all needs to be handled in some way, in a safe way, so that we can get back into our power again. I mean, anger can be really powerful, but we're probably doing the wrong things, and we're probably going to get anger back. So if we're out there sort of like splatting anger out, someone's going to turn around and splat back to us, and so you kind of
yeah.
in
I
this
think
vicious
that's
circle.
the world we live in today. Angry women aren't safe because of the way that society is constructed. And yesterday I was flicking through Instagram and I saw this amazing video, and it was a women's choir, but it was using women's angry, loud voices for the harmonies. And the overlay that went on it was basically saying that the reason why society, and particularly men, don't like the sound of a woman scream or a shout is because they've they've not been accustomed to dealing with emotion of any kind. So the message was basically when a woman screams, yells. I mean, well, if you'd have heard me in childbirth,
Yeah.
I was surprised at the voice that came out of me, but actually it was just a really natural expression of what was going on in that time. But for men, they've been taught to contain and to control and to be level. So when they hear it in us, they call us crazy,
Yeah.
dysregulated, and actually the
I think it's
woman's
worse. I think they
voice.
say worse things than dysregulated. That feels like a nice term for what
Yeah,
women have
well, I
been
was being
labelled.
polite. I was not regulated giving birth, honestly. But yeah, even now when I remember arguments with my ex who used to just prod me and push me to make me snap, and then he would then call me the crazy one, or God, you've lost it, look at you, or not in front of the kids, whatever it was, because it was almost like a bit of a game that he played, but it was almost like, ah, now that's the real you, Lucy. And I'm like, no, you push me to this rage because you wouldn't listen to me or you wouldn't acknowledge me. And it comes back to that whole thing of like, well, women aren't supposed to be angry.
No.
Um, but we're supposed to be the good girls. We're supposed to be compliant and agree and, push that voice down. But, try telling Boudica that. To try and be, compliant. And when the Romans came in and took her property, and then in punishment of her complaints, then raped and murdered all of her daughters. That's going to create some rage. And she's one of our legends. She's somebody that we all know about in British history, but women are taught to revere. And it's almost like the Victorians, or maybe a bit before, it taught us how to be so prim and proper, sugar and spice and all things nice. But that's not what womanhood. It's not what human experience is.
No, it's not real, is it? It's not real life. It's definitely not real life today. I think women were sort of like, they got married and they were sort of locked up, weren't they, really? And they were bringing up the kids and doing all of that. And, you know, so many women out that didn't really get to express themselves. And for me, anger is a form of expression. What we do with it, it can create the most amazing things. Like you said, the choirs, when you look at the hacker, you look
Yeah.
at that, it's just this
But
amazing.
also revolutions and that a lot of the political, or should I say holding the government to account for stuff, is caused by women saying this is not fair. And I always go back to the Hillsborough disaster, and it was the mothers who were fighting that because they were angry that do not blame my child, do not blame, the supporters, and they fought. So I know that anger channeled can be really, really life changing.
Absolutely. And the whole thing about, I think the thing for me is about suppressed anger is it hurts the woman. And this is the thing that we learn as we go through life, and especially now later on. And it's like internalized rage is the worst place for that rage to go. But we, I mean, I was like Googling the other day, like, have women started wars? And actually, quite a lot of women have started wars, but they've done it under the patriarchal
Yeah.
system of,
Can
land
I
power.
challenge that? Is it really quite a few women, or have
No,
women
there
done
was,
it
well, quite a few came
in
up.
comparison to men?
Well, I didn't ask the question about men, but when I
Okay.
looked, I was surprised because the claim I was making for myself was women don't start wars. So I was like, I
Okay.
better go check that out. And then I was like, actually, that's not true. But they are women in, you know, patriarchal systems that, for example, Queen Elizabeth created a lot of wars, and what the British Empire did, going out and claiming land for
Victoria
themselves.
upheld the empire.
Exactly. So, but that was under the patriarchal
Yeah.
way of operating, and obviously, as a queen born into that system, her job was to, build and grow our nation. So she delivered. She delivered in that seat, but it
Yeah.
wasn't a woman's approach to society and
Yeah.
life and culture. So when we're in a system, you may have women carrying these things out, but they're doing it from the place of the seat.
This
They're
is what
in
is
that seat.
expected of me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you don't do it, then someone else will come in and do it for you. Will do it anyway,
Yeah.
And I think I see the trappings of that in the work that I do. It's like, well, actually, if I'm in this seat, therefore I have to carry these things out because if I don't, I won't have the seat anymore, and the awareness that, but you could go find another seat somewhere else, it was better for you. And that's part of a different type of conversation. So we're going off like we've gone off as we always
But
do.
Elizabeth and Victoria will have felt rage. They will have felt angry that maybe they couldn't have done things a certain way, or if somebody had tried to betray them, or the male advisors who didn't trust them were playing Machiavellian games around them. They will have had anger and rage. It's just we only see these images of them being very regal and serene. But no, I can absolutely imagine they would have been raging.
I think the thing with it as well, if we bring this back now to modern times, because we've kind of gone on a bit of a history tour here, and it is this idea of what I see with women in the workplace now is that they take the seats, and sometimes what they're asked to do, they can do it for a certain amount of time, you know. But if it involves people and people that they care about and their teams, there's a different approach. And
Yeah,
so when it comes to values, morals, principles, they're not willing, they may think we can always justify something to ourselves. If I do that, if I do that, then I can secure these people, whatever it might be. But actually, when it comes down to it, if it goes against the principles that we have on the inside, there's only a matter of time that they'll stay in those roles
yeah,
before they go elsewhere. And that's the bit that I'm sort of talking about here. And actually, the cost of that suppressed rage that they feel when something is just wrong is brutal. And I've seen that over the last couple of years, with really senior leaders, and just thought the price is too high. And they get to the point of the price is too high. And that's when a senior leader will leave or go somewhere else. And, they're obviously looking for somewhere better. They're looking for somewhere where the organisations are approaching things differently. I don't think you ever really know until you're in the seat what's really going on behind closed doors. But I just know that women are just not willing to, do that. And also the cost of the suppression of their anger is
yeah.
so great that it does do something physically in their bodies in terms of illness and different things. So yeah, we've got to learn to acknowledge what's happening, listen to our bodies, work out what we need to do with the emotions, and then work out what we need to do with our own path and our own journey as leaders. And not for me, it's like there's always a line or a point when we go, actually, I'm not willing to do that, and having those really clear non-negotiables. Because if we're feeling the rage and we're feeling the anger, it's because we're being asked to compromise too much, and that
Yeah.
price is too high.
And I think the key here is to not let that anger and rage out in a way that's going to be harmful to yourself or to others. And it's about having that like, this is what I'm feeling. I can't do this anymore. And then working out a really healthy way out of that situation. And I was reflecting on this conversation beforehand, and I was thinking about I think you mentioned the word grief in our pre-chat, and how I may be holding on to some grief or need to process some grief. And actually, what came up for me when I looked at that a little bit more was what I grieve is the years of wasted time,
Mm.
the suppression, the not speaking my mind because angry women are not what society wants. And everything in that patriarchal system that taught me how to be a woman, how to be successful, how not to speak your mind too much or don't debate too much, don't be too much. And all of this, that is what I actually now grieve. All of those wasted years when I could have just allowed that anger, that opinions, those thoughts and feelings out. And so, just to be clear, that Karen and I are different energies into the world, and that's why we work so well together. I have never ever been any kind of wilting wallflower. I have always been a loud rebel, very opinionated, and sometimes argumentative, especially when there's something that I need to call BS to. Um, but it's not in a volcanoes way. I always would use my intellectual way to suppress the emotion so I could keep my cool in that debate or argument because it was generally with other men. Um, so I was never quiet, I was never shrinking, but I was controlled. And actually, now that's part of what I really grieve. It's like well, why the hell was I trying to play small when they were interrupting me? They were telling me I was wrong without any facts. Why didn't I hold my own? That's what I grieve. What
I
about
get.
you? What about your relationship with your rage? Because I said you and I have got different energies. I'm an outward. Ah. What about you?
I think it's that awareness as well, isn't it, around grief and anger. And actually, the anger can often be a cover for the deeper sadness that sits inside
Mm,
us. So if we get into anger, we don't have to sort of go a bit deeper and actually go, what am I really feeling like? Yeah, I'm feeling angry, but there's clearly a load of other emotions that I've
yeah.
ignored. And when we go into that, there's information and wisdom, and it's like, ooh, I feel really sad about the fact that I didn't, speak up properly because you do speak up, but it's like I think when we're sort of holding back and we're not fully going there, we only half say things sometimes, or in my case, I speak up, but people don't always listen to what I'm saying. So I might say something and I think it's like the crickets are outside, and I can hear the
Mm,
crickets and there's no response, and I think I've just said something really important, and I'm getting no acknowledgement at all, and that then makes me angry, because I just think, am I talking into a void? And that's been my experience of growing up all my life, really, of me going, I've got this sensation, I've got this feeling, and I'm going to speak it, and then people just ignore, and then they continue doing what they wanted to do anyway, and then I kind of think, well, what's the point in speaking up? So that was more my story of going, well, I might as well just keep my words to myself, stay quiet, because I don't have enough confidence to go for it a second or third time and say no. I'll just comply, and that makes me sad. That's where my sadness comes in of
yeah.
going. When I look back and I go, oh my God, I knew something. I spoke it, but I got ignored. Um, and then I think we get into some really dangerous patterns of going, people don't respect me or my voice isn't
Yeah.
enough. And actually, that's not true. We have to learn to be really quite forceful with it. And our anger is, serving us to say, hold on a minute. Because I think if we're in deep sadness, we're probably not going to sort of go back in a second time. If we sort of like go down further, we'll be like sort of crumbling on the inside, but the anger actually serves us and we go, no, no, I spoke. You're not listening. I said stop
Yeah.
coming towards me, and now you're coming towards me, and I'm telling you now, stop, or else I'm calling the police, or whatever we need to say. And that's a really extreme it's an extreme example, but how much stuff happens out on the streets where people come towards you and you think, I don't want you, and like having to be very, very clear with people about boundaries, like physical boundaries in this case. And I learned that much later on in life, and I trust now that I can uphold those boundaries, but I never got taught it. So, you know, that's where I think anger can be really, really great, and especially later on in life, because if we didn't learn boundaries younger and we weren't in a boundaried, or the boundaries were very confusing, and not clear at all. So we didn't really know where we stood as children, because our parents weren't really very equipped and most of them didn't have the life skills that we have, and we've now got all this experience. And so teaching that to women so that they can not just go, I'm angry, but is it just me? Oh, I'll speak up, no one's listening to me. Okay, well, I'll just suppress it. It's like, no, no, no. This is really, really important work. So yeah, I think I feel sadness around the fact that my no got ignored, all
Mm,
the way through my life until I just went, when I say no, I mean no. And that's like a feeling on the inside of my body that I'm like, you don't mess with me on this one, because you can try it, but I might be weaker in my physicality or something. There might be something else where I'm not as strong. But when it comes to my no, it's a really real absolute.
mm.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think I was very boundaried as a kid, and my parents had very strong boundaries, which did give us a lot of freedom because we all knew, well, yeah, each other's boundaries and where we would step over it and how we would deal with it. We never, ever had arguments in our household, though.
Yeah.
And so if somebody stepped over a boundary or did something you didn't agree with, it was always disappointment or silent treatment.
Yeah.
So I never learned to deal with my anger, but there would be a lot of debating about it, which is where I learnt to debate,
Yeah.
to share and exchange ideas. So when I then went out into, well, even just high school, going into the school and the teachers would say something, I would always challenge. And it was when they would then say, um, that's not very ladylike, or you're just causing trouble, I would get angry then, and I wouldn't allow it out as in front of the teachers because I'd been taught to respect my teachers.
Yeah.
But actually, I would then take that home and I would then bury it because, on one hand, in my home, I was allowed to debate and challenge and think for myself, and then was going out and being conditioned to be a good, compliant worker bee. And actually, yeah, during I think it was when I was at university where they suddenly started encouraging that free thought and free speech and to challenge ideas. I just felt like this whole world had opened up. And
Mm.
I really was that in a rebel, and it was amazing. Nobody told me to shut up. And then I went to work. And then I did all the good girl things that society expected. And there were lots of things at work that should not have been going on, that I didn't agree with. But to survive, especially in the corporate world, you have to play the game. And to allude to what you were saying about women who have got to a certain level, they've been playing the game so long that that mask stops working anymore, and they just say, "I'm done." And I absolutely got there, and that again, that makes me angry. So, should we talk a little bit about some of the things that makes us angry? Because
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
feeling it. I'm like it's bubbling up inside of me.
I
Why don't
have
you
it.
share some of the things?
Yeah, and I just want to talk about emotion because I think the thing is when we allow ourselves to be fully emotional, it's really quite messy because
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
that's how we know we're in the emotion. And therefore we need to be around people who are able to handle that, have got the space and time for it, um, are willing to hold space because it's also really hard for the person holding the space for the person who's in the messy emotions.
Mm,
Um, and I've been learning that with my own daughter, and really allowing her to feel her emotions. And it's really, really hard for me because she's my daughter and she's 7. She's not like a grown up. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. And it's because I'm handling all this emotional output from her and saying your emotions are welcome here. You can have your emotions. However, when it and bound putting boundaries in place for her and saying, however, when you do this or when you say mean things or towards me or when get physical, that is a definite no. So it's like you can have the emotion, but you don't
yeah,
then vent it towards me, the dog, your dad, anyone else. Um, Now she doesn't do anything like that towards anyone else, but she can get physical sometimes, as kids do, and you're just like, and that's the bit that I've had to learn that's been really hard for me because I'm like this heartfelt person, and like all about feelings and emotions, and then I'm like, but boundaries are needed because without the boundaries,
absolutely.
you become a punching bag or you're holding too much emotion for other people, and that you've got to work out where to put that stuff because that's not actually my job. I'm not here to hold her emotion because I've got to work out my own emotions. So it's like working with all of that and learning a lot and learning why our parents probably went into rational thought for us. Like, it's like, well, let's talk about it, and then let's fix it. And
Mm.
sometimes just the feelings, as long as they don't hurt somebody else, just having the feelings are enough. So I'm on that journey from a different seat now.
Can I just share a story that kind of ties into that about being able to express your really raw rage? And a dear friend of mine had been betrayed by a very long-term partner, and she'd gone through all of the denial, then all of the emotions, and then she got stuck in that anger because she was ready to release. She needed it to go somewhere, and she tried to articulate to him, but he wasn't listening. So she decided to kick the crap out of his car.
Mm,
And afterwards, she felt so ashamed. And I actually said, look, you're a grown ass woman.
yeah.
Um, the rage that you were feeling was insurmountable, but you didn't take it out on a person. You took it out on an object that mattered to him,
Mm,
and in the court of law, yes, it would have been criminal damage. Um, but it was like, no, you took that anger and you took it out on something external that actually has no feelings, that can't be emotionally damaged by your rage. And I actually, yes, like I said, it was criminal damage. Um, but I was like really proud of her for channeling that because previously, in a previous life, in years before, she would have taken it out on the kids or on him or got angry at work or something. So, and I just wanted to just share that because whether we are 7 or 47, actually, if we haven't learned to release our rage in a healthy way, we are going to start working it out on other people and cause destruction. And let's face it, we see that happening all around the world, in homes, in governments, in society. And yeah, that's the lesson, I guess. How can we move through this anger and do it in a really skilled way? But it's got to embrace the anger.
Embrace anger. So the things that make me angry. Well, I always wanted to be a woman. It sounds weird. It's like I came here saying I want to be a woman, but I was always really proud of being a girl that then became, a young woman that has kind of moved through the life phases. And like, I can't imagine being a man. So I was always like, oh, I'm so proud of being a woman, and feeling really sort of, I don't know, sort of like I'm doing this with my shoulders, but it's like I can just imagine myself walking through the streets going, I'm a woman, I'm so proud. Um, and I loved the idea of the sisterhood and the softness and the power that comes with that. Soft power is one of my words for this year. Because I feel like power can be really soft, but really still really powerful. So working with all these things, and now at this point in my journey, I'm looking back and I'm going, oh my God, I have been I have been treated differently because I'm a woman, not in the right ways, but in the very wrong ways. And I do believe in equality, but I do believe we're also different. So I'm trying to get all of that right in my head. It's like, well, actually, I go through different things every month, and I'm not flatline, and I've got these, change and shifts inside me all the time, and that makes me really, really resilient, and I can handle pain, and la 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 la. And at the same time, sometimes I would like a little bit of that. And it's like, so that's on the physicality and the biology level. But I just feel like actually I've had to work so much harder, and I still work so much harder than my husband. And he goes like, I feel really sorry for you because you're such a hard worker and you're such a grafter, and like I look at my life sometimes and I think there isn't a corner of my life where I'm not working hard. Like I am at it. Like, and sometimes it feels like I'm working way too hard, and I have to reset that and come back. But it's because I've been trained to like go, like I had something in my system that from a young kid that was like, if I want it, I'm going to have to go out there and do it, and I'm going to have to make it happen. And because I knew it wasn't going to get handed to me somehow, I somehow knew that, you know, and that has been the truth of my life. And so therefore I've been doing that and doing that and doing that. And now I'm in midlife and I'm like, what a load of bullshit. It makes me really, really cross because I just think I've had to fight harder. I've had to like really sort of like pull myself up those cliffs and get myself into those seats. And I'm still sort of jumping through loads of hoops to sort of convince people of certain things that I know is right and truthful. Not when I'm coaching because that's a whole different ball game and that's just pure connection and pure like brilliance coming through. But when you come out of the coaching seat and you're in an everyday world, it's like, why are we justifying ourselves? Why do we have to work
Yeah.
so extra hard just to get somewhere? And most of the time, we're not even getting paid the same. And we're carrying so much more emotionally, physically, yeah, on every single level. So that makes me. So now I'm raging about that. And I didn't know it until the last. I'll give it like I think the last 3 years it's become very clear to me, and I've just thought, oh, I'm angry and I'm also sad because I have a daughter, and I'm like, oh God, Catalina, like this is not, it's not an easy road and it's not an easy ride. And
Oh no, no. And there was a brilliant video that some masterful geniuses made, and it basically had um, a mum and dad at the beginning of a starting line of a 100-meter sprint, and he'd got a briefcase, a sandwich box carrying two kids, and then the mum had nothing, and they just did the race. And of course, she sped way ahead because she wasn't carrying all of that extra stuff. And it was just a really simple message that actually it's not about gender,
mm,
because actually we might do things slightly differently because our bodies and our hormones and whatever are different. But when you take all of that away, all of those extra burdens, and we're on a playing field, we can run, we can excel. And then when you start at looking at it intersectionally, you add any of the other marginalized elements into it, you and I are white, we're privileged. We live in a white country, an English speaking country, so it's our first language. You add any of that on, and oh my God, it's so much harder. So I totally get your rage, which actually then starts speaking to my rage and my anger because I'm really angry. And basically, it's the patriarchy. And it's the white patriarchy. So I'm angry at old, powerful white men who cling on to their positions and their money and their power and their wealth and bully other people to keep control. Try gaslighting us and telling us that it's not true. And the fact that they are actually in the global minority
Mm.
and the rest of us, there's more of us than them, and yet they still walk around with this arrogance that of mediocre men. And so then I then get really angry at intolerance and hate.
Yeah.
So anybody that is marginalized, anybody that is othered or dehumanized, and I see a lot of it going on in the world right now. And I used to read about it in the history books, but we're living it right now, and I am angry. Um, and then I'm angry that women are still blamed for men's behavior, whether it's the way that she's dressing, the way that she answered back, the way that um, she shows up, everything. If a man is behaving badly towards another woman, they go into victim mode or they blame the woman. And that makes me really, really angry. Um, I think right now I'm just done with being responsible for everybody else's
Yeah.
healing and happiness except our own. And we've been at the bottom, of that for too long.
I agree. I agree with you on that one. And I've got a little story just to share. It was going back to 20, it's around about 2015. Um, I was like, women rage, it's an issue. And I spoke to Red Magazine, and the features editor was like, I love it. It's a brilliant idea. We were going to do like a workshop around it and have women together, and she was going to come up and cover it. And we were going to do a full like anger release. And then she went to the editor, and the editor was like, "We're not running that piece. We're not doing that story." And she just didn't like it. And I'm like, I mean, this is 2015, so it's quite a long time ago. Now we've had, last year was the year of rage for women. I've had so many conversations with men who are like, they're like sisters to me. And they're like, women are getting really angry, and I'm here for it. It's absolutely amazing, and like absolutely, it's absolutely as it should be. And I'm like, yeah, I saw this, I knew this, but it was so more suppressed, and now that volcano is coming to the surface, and so I want to celebrate that because
Yeah.
that needs to happen in order for us to, be the phoenix that comes through the fire and actually look at it and go, we've got issues, we've got issues, we've got issues. No, they're not our issues, personal issues. They are issues in the systems. They are issues in society. These are business, structural, organizational issues. And the fact that we are angry about it means that this is true. And if you connect other women, like I wanted to do with that, that rage program, I didn't call it rage, I called it anger. Um, a softer version of it, I suppose. And we all join together, then the movement comes, and then the movement brings change, and then we're here, me and you together, like creating the work that really embeds the change. And I'm all
But
for
of
that.
course, it was never going to go because the people who own the magazine were probably those same old white men who hold all the power. They don't want angry women. They want
No.
us to be compliant. So um, it's interesting though, because you said 2015, because I think it was 2016 that the Dalai Lama said that the
Yeah.
world will be saved by white Western women, and it's
Yeah.
happening. So again, you always see things before everybody else,
Slightly
Karen.
ahead of the curve, which is a problem sometimes because everyone's like, "What are you talking about? What are you on about? I don't understand you." And I'm like, "I know. Just trust me. It's right.
It's
It's
coming, it's
coming.
happening.
It's
Yeah.
coming. I'll speak to you about it again in 10 years' time, and then maybe you'll be ready. And meanwhile, like I'm like that behind the scenes, working too hard, paddling on my bike. Um, it's just life, isn't it? I'm grateful, and I said before, like being a woman, like I was proud. And when I get into that and I think about what's going on, the pride. I mean, I'm getting hot, so like there's energy moving in my body, and I know that I was born in this space and time for a reason, and I am one of many. a tiny little, spark on the horizon somewhere. I'm a small thing, but I'm here with a big mission, and I know you are too. And we just really want to help women. What can you share as, something that a woman can do to help her own this part of herself?
Um, I truly believe what helped me most of all was actually naming what I was angry about. And I think we've done loads of empowerment kind of exercises, which is like, I want, I need, I am worthy of, and writing all those lists. But when I did my I am angry at, it felt so liberating because it was almost like I've been gaslighting myself for all those years. And to pinpoint where was my passion coming from? Because actually, yes, I was angry, but I was passionate as well. And with that passion, then I can then start taking some positive action rather than unhealthy, dysregulated anger action. So it turns it then into a cause or almost like a bit of a life purpose.
Yeah.
So I would say recognize your anger and then ask, what's it all about? What's in it? What's that spark, that common thread? And probably as you're writing it down, you've got every bloody reason to be angry about that injustice, that unfairness, the way that you were treated or not treated, and just accept, yeah, this is real. This is absolutely okay. I would say that's the first thing for me. Name it, own it, understand it.
Absolutely. I love that, the three-step process. Um, I would say some of the best things I've done has been when I've listened to that voice of like, this isn't right. And I have gone in above my station many times, to be honest, and said, this is not right. This is what I think. And change has happened, and it's been amazing. And I'm talking about the sort of like the organizational level, when people have gone, I agree with you. Like when you move from anger and it's clear and it's the right thing and you communicate it clearly, people hear it and they get on board with you, and they're the right people. I mean, there's many the hoops are now sort of like I'm jumping through the hoops, but so many brilliant things have happened, and I think they've been my most powerful and most defining moments of my life. When it's been ignored or someone's pushed through my no, they've been the worst moments of my life, but they've also made me who I am today, and they've made me more determined and more powerful in a way to sort of go, no is no, yes is yes. Let's be really clear about what's a no and what's a yes, and let's work out. Without anger, it's weird. I'm going to say something here that is like not what you'd hear often, but without anger, I feel like we'd allow so many of the things to happen
Yeah.
that we shouldn't. You know what I mean? There's a point in time when I look at what's going on in America and I'm reading some people's posts, coaches, amazing coaches' posts about there's a point when we have to stand up and we have to say no more of this. And what's one of the lines was, if you do the dirty work, you get promoted at the moment. So that really, really landed with me. The rest of it didn't land as much, but that was like, oh, people have been rewarded for like doing awful things. There's a point as a human being when we have to say that is just wrong, and I'm going to say it's wrong. And if you don't like that, I will go somewhere else and find people, that are on board with me, where we speak the same language because I
Oh, do you
can.
know what? You're getting me angry again now, Karen.
Sorry, we kind of came out the other side, didn't we? Let's not open up the wounds, but
But yeah, no, I'm really thankful that you did say it though, because again, we have been taught don't say that anything about religion or money or sex or politics. We don't talk about that. And actually, yes, we bloody well should. So, you've seen the different ways Karen and I express anger and how we work through it, and the lessons that we were taught, and how we are expressing anger and rage right now. So, it's over to you to claim your right to feel the unfairness, the injustice, and the intolerable in your world, and to give yourself permission to just feel and name it and express yourself in a really healthy way. So, no more keeping it silent to keep the peace, but always stay safe and look after yourself, because your partner, your boss, your society isn't quite ready for your inner Boudica, but we are getting there.